Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Zevachim daf Yud Tes. We are going to begin on the very top of Yud Tes Amud Aleph, the very top line. Amar Rav Ashi, Amar Lehuna Baruch Nasan Zimnachada, have a kamina kamei de is Gadar. So one time I was in front of this individual, Izgadar Malka. Rashi says Kach Shemo. This was his name. Umelech Prashoy, he was a king of Persia. Vahavi Medalili Hemnoi, and he was basically lifting up his belt, making his belt high. V'teisin Hiloi, then also he pulled it down. Says Rashi, Avnato Hoya Gavoa Chagar Mo'amala Mekeneged Etzili Yadav. As we saw in yesterday's daf, that the proper place of having the belt is if you would put your elbows in a natural way, your shoulders down. So where your elbows end is where the belt should be. However, as Rashi says, they were above that point. And then when he lowered it, it was also lower. V'yamruli mamlechas kohanim v'goy kadosh ksiv. So b'chu says Rashi, usrichan oiselin hoig atzmechem b'tiferes shel kohanim. You have to act in the proper way of the Kohanim do. Deksiv bahu liyichru biza. So kiyasa kamedi amemar malay ekayim bach v'hay malachim umnecha. That you fulfill the pasuk that says will be your kings will nurture you. Okay. So Tanan Hasa. So we learned in Sechtas Erevin, it says, Kayin shalaka be'etzbai. Let's say you have a kayin who unfortunately they hurt their finger and they need some type of a bandage. Now there's a couple of problems. First of all, as we were just learning, you cannot have mechusar begadim. A kohen can't have less than the required amount, but he's also allowed to have more than the required amount. So if you put a band-aid on, maybe that's an extra beged. Also, there's an issue of chatzitza, because the garment has to be directly onto your skin. So, nonetheless, the Gemara says that you are allowed to put a bandage which is made out of reed, and you can use it during the time of the avoda, and that's only in the mikdash of Eloi b'Medina. Says Rashi, why? Shiganaihu shetiroeh sham makasai. It would be not very good. That you should be able to see, the makkah. So therefore, it's better that it should be covered up. And Rashi says, "V'chol davar sheish bo mishum refuah asur mishum shvus gezerah shema yisok simonim." We know that when it comes to medications or healing or medicinal remedies, they're asur midrabanan because of the isur deraisa that you may come to take a mortar and pestle and start making your actual medication. Bahani mili b'Medina. That's only outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So there's no issue of shvus in the Beis Hamikdash. That's why he's allowed to wear this. So as we mentioned before, the belt in this story before was too high, which is a place where people maybe sweat. That's what it said. So therefore, he pulled it down to the proper place. The king pushed his belt down for him. So the king nurtured him by doing that, by putting down the belt. That was the idea behind that story. Anyway, so let's say blood is coming out, then kan v'kan aser. Then already that much we're not going to allow. And so there's Rashi, because it's a chabura, and that's the Issa D'Oraisa. So an Issa D'Rabbanan in the Beis Hamikdash were lenient. Omar Rabbi Yehuda, the only time we say this is Ela Gemi. We allow you to use a reed. If you would use a tziltzul katan, which is an ornamental belt, that is not allowed, because that's considered to be like a beged, and therefore a kohen is only allowed to have the prescribed begadim and not anymore. Rav Yochanan, who disagrees, that's only the place where the garments are. As Rashi says, fine. But if it's not where your garments are, like on your fingers, then lo have a yitur. The whole issue is, let's say, instead of just wearing a shirt, you also wear a tank top underneath. So that's considered to be yitur begadim. But if you're putting something on your finger, that doesn't do anything because that's not where the begadim are anyway. Why don't we have the issue of chatzitza? Why are we going into the issue of maybe it's a new garment? Why don't you just say it's a chatzitza to do the avodah? So one answer is besmol, and we know that you can't use your left hand for the avodah, so therefore that's not an issue. The bruise is just on your left hand. In other words, it could be, let's say, on this part of your hand, right? So it's a part of your hand, or maybe it's over here on your arm. So that's not something which is really connected to the avodah, because you're not using your hands. If again, it's the top of your hand, if you will. Who plagued the Rava? The place where the bruises that the cover that you're going to put this band-aid on or whatever it is, something like that, where the garment is, I feel nima achas chetzetzas. Literally, even a little hair is a chatzitza. Shalom amakam begadim. If it's shalom amakam begadim, then shosha shloisha chetzetzas. Then it's only if it's considered to be yitur begadim, as Rashi says, that it's got to be at least 3 by 3 for it to be a chatzitza. So look in Rashi. Koimer havi yitur begadim v'adin naked b'nima achas b'makam begadim lishn the chatzitza the shaykh ba naked nami b'maskana lishn the chatzitza. Okay, so pachas mekanim, it's less than shal shalish 3 by 3 in a chatzitz. So the Rav Yochanan v'adi pligi, regarding Rav Yochanan's statement that says that the only time we say vitur begadim is extra garment is only b'makam begadim, b'mashal b'makam begadim, it's not an issue at all. So over here, he definitely argues, because after all, so Rashi says, if it's not where the clothes are, even if it's more than 3 by 3, apparently it doesn't make any difference if it's not on the place of the garment. So it seems like he definitely argues with Rabbi Yochanan. Maybe, who knows if they argue with regarding Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia, who said that the only time potentially it's allowed is by a reed, a gemi, but not by a tziltzul katan. Maybe he disagrees with that. No, shani tziltzul katan the chashiv. In other words, really, you need shalosh shalosh. He's not going to argue regarding Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia's din, because that tziltzul katan, even though it's small, it is a davar chashiv, and therefore it's considered to be a beged, and it doesn't matter even if it's pachas m'shalosh shalosh. Lish nachrin, another lashon. Armilam Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia loshon el gemi. Only by gemi is it allowed for a kain. But tziltzul katan, when it comes to an ornamental belt, chaytzitz. So it's a chatzitza. So the first lashon, he said it's vitur begadim. Here it's chatzitza. Rabbi Yochanan lo chatzitza b'pachas m'shalosh shalosh. Ella, we don't say a chatzitza if it's that small. Only if that's where the clothes are. But if it's not where the clothes are, so the chiluk between 3 or less than 3 is shaloi b'makam begadim. Behind the Rava, which is what Rava said. Okay. So Rav Chisda lema pliga ad Rav Yehuda bar Rav Chia. Maybe he disagrees with him. No, shani tziltzul katan d'chashiv, because even the Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia said that a tziltzul katan is a chatzitza. So maybe he disagrees, and he mentions by shalosh. No, it's never chashiv. Even pachas is considered to be a chatzitza. Rabbi Yochanan, my area gemi, according to the sheet of Rabbi Yochanan, that says that it's only b'makam begadim of a shalom b'makam begadim. It's not an issue. So why do you need to use this case of gemi? Lashmin and tziltzul katan tell us that this case, which is a bigger chiddush, that it's tziltzul katan, which even though you would maybe think it's a davar chashiv, so nonetheless he says it's not an issue if it's not b'makam begadim. It's not a bigger chiddush, right? It says milsa gavarcha kamashmon de gemi masi. It's just coming to tell us a different thing onto its own, that the reed actually is a refuah for a makkah. And nonetheless, it's allowed because there's no din of ein shvus b'mikdash. And therefore, that's the reason why that's the chiddush. Even though you're right, on some level, tzitzel cotton seems like a bigger chiddush. There's never chashav, and he still allows it. Okay, fine. So that's that. Boy Rava. So now Rava asks a question. We're talking about these begadim. Imagine nichnasalod ruach mevigdoi mahu. You have this gust of wind that came inside your clothes. So al basaro beinan v'haleka. The clothes need to be physically on your garments, and now you have this wind that separates your skin from the garment. We just say no. It's the normal way of wearing it, and that's good enough. Kinamahu shetachlites. What's the din regarding if there's a louse, there's lice inside your baguette? So is that considered to be a chatzitza? Okay. Mesa lo tiboyach nevade chaytzi. If the thing is dead, it's not like a chatzitza. Chayimai. The question is if you have a lice that's alive. Mirmin and kivan de asav azla, since it can move and come and go, revisahivo chaytzi. So this is like part of your basar in a way. It's not a chatzitza. Obviously, you don't like having these bugs crawling on you, so therefore it's a chatzitza. Okay, so that we don't know. Question 7. So this is a 2-part question. So if it's dead, it's definitely chatzitza. If it's a living, that's an iboidal ifshata. Offer mahu shiachlites. What is the din when it comes to dirt? Afar vadichayitz. So afar is definitely a chatzitza. Avak afar mahu. Let's see if there's Rashi over here. Avak afar dak venu margish boy. It's like a thinner dust. By beis hashechi mahu. Let's say a person has under their arms space. There's airspace, like a person's shirt, like a baggy shirt. Is that considered to be a chatzitza? Mahu shiachitz al basar b'inan v'holek. It's not on his skin. Odil maderch levisha v'kach. Hichnis yodel ataychikoi mahu. What if a person puts his hand inside of his shirt? What is a din? Is that considered to be, is that a chatzitza or not? Mahu gufoi michayetz olo. Since it's his own body, is that a chatzitza? Nema mahu shetachitz. How about when it comes to hair? Is that a chatzitza? So nima vadichaytz. Certainly hair is a chatzitza. El nima medoldelas mahu. Let's say it's hanging from the garment. That is the question. Boy mar baravashi yatasar bevigdo mahu. Let's say some hair fell out and now it's on his flesh. Sar kagufodami, is it like his own skin? It's not a chatzitza. Love kagufodami, fine. Boy Rab Zera, tefillin mahu shiachaitzu. So basically, are kohanim allowed to wear tefillin? That's the question. And it sounds like it's an issue of chatzitza, mahu shiachutzu. But for some reason, if you look at Rashi, interestingly enough, he says, Lahavi Yiter Begadim, is wearing tefillin for the Kayin considered to be extra garments. And Taisus again picks up on this and says, Mishum Chatzitza, Ma Mishnir Tfei. Okay. Hichnes Yodel Sachiko Mahu. Okay, so we did that. Nemo Mahu Shtachos. So what is the din by this? 1 second, where was I? Oh, Boy Rav Zer. Tefillin Mahu. So let's say a person holds that the nighttime is not the right time to wear tefillin. There's no mitzvah to wear it because it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. So then it's not a shiloh whatsoever. Why? Kivan delayla chaytzi, because at night it's a chatzitza. Yom nami chaytzi. So therefore, during the day it's also considered to be a chatzitza. Kiti boyel chaman yermel layos man tefillin. You can wear tefillin all the time. My mitzvah de gufi chayetz, is it considered to be a chatzitza or lo chayetz? So that is the question. Says Rashi. So in the event that you hold that you can wear the tefillin at night, l'ti boyel devadi Chaitzi, Pumfakert. If you hold that Lila's lavzman tefillin hu, which is what we hold, so he says, then certainly it's a chatzitza. Can mafarish time given to be avoidus Lila chaitzin to do avoid at night, it would be a chatzitza. The ha lo mitzvah havi, you're not doing a mitzvah. The havi kigufi mishum chavivusa the mitzvah. The yom nami chaitzin. The imulkein masinu avoidus Lila chomer mi avoidus yoim. The hein kolon mehen. The night is more kal, but it would sound like for some reason we're more strict when it comes to the laws of night avoda than day avoda. So fine. So in Galgil Milsa, the matter went around. Eventually, the question was posed to Rabbi. Talmud Oruch Hubiadenu. There's this student in our hands. Tefillin chaytzetzes. Tefillin actually is a chatzitza for the Kohanim. Meisvei Kohanim b'avoidasam. Avim b'duchanan v'Yisrael b'mamadan. So when it comes to all these different people doing the avoda and Levim singing at the platform, or Yisrael and during the Maimid, because during the 24 Mishmaros, also Klal Yisrael was divided up keneged those Mishmaros, so which is called the Maimid. So Patur min atfila min atfilin. It says beferish they're parted from tefillin, right? So clearly a kohen doesn't have to wear tefillin. So my love, so maybe that's coming to tell you that he doesn't have to wear the tefillin. But if let's say he does decide to wear the tefillin, then it's not going to be a chatzitza. Whoa, maybe the opposite. He's not mechuyev in the mitzvah, so if he wears them, it is a chatzitza. So yihachi paturin asurin miboyle. Should say it's aser. Kivan de ikol levim Yisrael deloy mastuli aser mishum hachi tana paturin. You're right. Maybe it is aser. However, since in that sentence are also Levim and Yisrael, and of course Yisrael can put on tefillin, b'shas maimid. So therefore, we didn't want to use that language of aser and mutter because it's not aser for them to wear. It's just that they're oisik and mitzvahs, patur and mitzvah. That's it. It says beferish that if you do put them on, it's not a chatzitza. Lukasha hadiyad hadaraish. So if you put on the tefillin shel yad on the hand, that's a chatzitza. Daha bein beg the basar, because you're wearing garments, and therefore if you put the tefillin shel yad, you can't wear them over your shirt. You have to put them so it's touching your skin, and therefore it's a chatzitza. However, on the head, it's not a chatzitza, as Gemara is going to explain shortly. So Gemara says, 1 second. Ma'ishna di'adechsiv yilba shel b'sadoi, has to be like worn on your garment. Shel yehedav v'chaitzitz bein l'sadoi. It says that you have to wear it, and there shouldn't be anything separating. So the rosh namiksiv b'samta hamasnefes al roishai, that the hat, the misnefes, also has to be on your head without a chatzitza. So Tana, so we learned Sa'aro, the hair of the Kohen Gadol, which appeared between the tzitz on the forehead to the hat, there was a little bit of space because the hat was worn high. So Sa'aro hayan nira bein tzitz l'misnefes. So there was a little bit of space between the golden head plate, Kodesh Hashem, in which the Kohen Gadol wore, and his misnefes and his hat. So what did they do with that extra space on this guy's head? As we continue Testament base, Shisham menichin tefillin. Beferish, they would put tefillin there. What does that show? Says Rashi, Hilkach leika chatzitza. There is no chatzitza. Vatana de itzrach lashmiina ni manichin in chatzetzes. It's not a chatzitza. Mishum yitur begadim hu de itzrach lashmiina de lav beged hu. Tefillin don't count as one of the begadim for it to be a prohibition of vitur begadim, so it's not a problem. Question 7: Tefillin mahu she'achutza b'beit kahuna. So this is where we made the distinction. The tefillin of the yad is a chatzitza, of the rosh is not a chatzitza. So interestingly enough, the Kohen Gadol wore tefillin, but he only wore the tefillin on the head. He did not wear tefillin shel yad. He only wore tefillin shel rosh, which again shows it's an independent mitzvah. You don't necessarily have to do both. Obviously, it's a chiyuv to do both, to put on both pairs of tefillin. But let's say nebuch, a person, I don't know, let's be dramatic, has no arms, or they're physically incapable of having tefillin on their head, so they could still put tefillin on their arm. So you should do that. You can at least put their separate, independent mitzvos in that regard. Of course, when we put on the tefillin, we don't make a chatzitza between one bracha and the next. But b'di'eved, person isn't able to put on two pair of tefillin, both the tefillin shel and the rosh, put on one, and that's enough. And that's actually what the din is by the Kohen Gadol here as well. Okay, fine. Question. Okay, let's move on. So Mechusar Kippurim. What's going on Mechusar Kippurim? So this brings us, I believe, still the first Mishnah in the second parak, right? Which talked about all the different things that you would do through Kabbalah Sadam while you're either a non-Kohen, a Zar, an Oini, and a Tful Yoim. And Mechusar Kippurim. Mechusar Kippurim, so which means that you've had Erev Shemesh, you're mutter to eat Truma because it's already past Seitz and Kochavim if you're a Kohen, but you're still lacking bringing the carbon on the 8th day, so you're Mechusar Kippurim, so you're Mechusar Maisa. So Minol and some Rab Huna Omer Kra, because the pasuk says in its entirety, it says the lo timsi yada they say, if you don't have a sheep, v'lokcha sheitayrim o shnei b'niyayna, so you can take 2 doves, 2 turtle dove, echad oil v'echad chatos. One is an oil and one is a chatos. So chipra leha kayin v'tahera, and the kayin will cause there to be a kapara for that person. So what do we see? Tahara machal shehi tameya. So the fact that it says he's tahar is mashma up until now he's still tameh. And therefore, as Rashi says, "V'tamik sib baby nazru bo yichalu," so he's still considered to be tamei. V'shlo rochas yodav raglaim. Also, if he didn't wash his hands in the laver, asi chuka memachus v'gadim. So he went out through Gzer Shava. Tanaban kohen gadol shlo tavel. If a kohen gadol, he didn't immerse himself. V'shlo kiddush, he didn't wash his hands and feet. Bein beglo beged, which whenever they would change from the big day Zahav to the big day Lavan, or vice versa, it was always necessary to do this cleansing process. And let's say even if they would have skipped doing the tefillah or the kiddush yadayim, nonetheless it's still a kosher avodah. However, when it comes to not washing your hands in the morning, the avodah subsula. So that is the exception, that at that point the avodah would be possible if you would have missed the very first, as we'll get to maybe why. Let's see. Chamish tefillos. There was actually 5 times the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur would immerse himself. The Asar Kiddushin. And there was 10 times that he would also have to wash his hands and feet, which is in between the going to the mikveh. Now, diraisa, these are all dini diraisa. V'chukak sibahu yikuva. All these things are ma'akiv. So I can understand why it's possible the very first time if he doesn't wash. How come it says all the other times it's not possible? So Ramli Kra, Lavashim, you should wear them. Lavi Shemakeves, it's only the wearing which is ma'akiv. Bein devaracher ma'akiv, nothing else. And therefore, it's only when it comes to wearing the right clothes and not wearing the right clothes is the whole issue of psul. However, not when it comes to this, it's not ma'akev. Okay. Sahabu Paniv, and all of a sudden, Rav Asi's face changed colors because of joy. Says Rashi, Kasavar Tam Hagan Shama. He felt that he was hearing a really good interpretation. Amalei Vav Vaisa Kisvelach. So he said that the Vav of Svaisa, which is on a log of wood, which is not recognizable, I'm writing to you. What exactly does that mean? It says Rashi, Oisheni Karesba, a letter which is unrecognizable, Mine Shiros Habikois Shemafsikusba, because there's something which is separating and making it very difficult to see. Kloimer, Ein Zetam. This is not the reason. The ego actually, you could still ask a question. Can if you kodesh shel shachar shel Kippurim namilu akiv bay? That shouldn't be ma'akiv daha amiyat b'yom Kippurim mulvashim. Okay, yihachi that safra nami. So the kasha is so maybe also in the morning. So Omer Chizkiya, Omer Kra. So maybe the first washing should also not possible. So he says Omer Kra. The pasuk does also say V'rachas you have to wash your hands and feet. V'lo yamusu, and you won't die. V'haisal lehem chayk. It'll be a chayk forever. Lo zara daraisim, for all future generations. Davar hama'akiv bezaro ma'akiv boy. Something in which is ma'akiv for all generations is ma'akiv to this regular Kohen. Davar she'ein ma'akiv bezaro, something which is not ma'akiv to your children, and ma'akiv boy will not be ma'akiv for generations. So what exactly is being said over here? So Rashi says, "V'haisel hem l'chachaylam b'kiddush ksiv bezara b'kohanim hedyotim." Regular kohanim, dahainu kiddush, when they wash their hands, shebashas kenisa, when they enter in, shenoiheg b'chol hakohanim. It's something which is noiheg for all kohanim. That's ma'akiv. However, doiris hu diksiv azhara linhoig chukazu l'zara charav. However, she'ein maksik mayim kashir. However, when it comes to something which is davar she'ein ma'akiv bezaro, because it only applies to the Kohen Gadol and no one else, like these 10 things, right? The 5 washings, the 5 mikvahs, and them this. So that's not ma'akiv boy. That's only something in which is applicable to a regular Kohen. Rav Yonasan Omer Mahacha. So it says that Moshe, Aaron, and his kids. So davar ha'ma'akiv b'banav ma'akiv boy. Davar she'ein ma'akiv b'banav in ma'akiv boy. It's basically the same idea that, as Rashi says, Moshe Aaron train, Ubanav train. So Moshe and Aaron is 2, his kids are 2. Shav Moshe Kohen Hayam b'shivas me'im Maluyim. He was actually, as we know, Moshe was also served as a Kohen Gadol for 7 days. So nonetheless, it's written in this way anyway to say that Barachas Min Moshe Aaron Uvanav, and even though they didn't all do it at the same time, but they were all acted as Kohanim Gedolim. So it's the Devar Ma'akiv B'Banav Ma'akiv Boy, which again is referring to things which has a regular Kohen in his first washings of the day. Devar She'ein Ma'akiv B'Banav. But it's not something which is known for his kids because they're not all Kohanim Gedolim, so Ein Ma'akiv Bo. Rav Yonasan, my Talmud Lemer Kid Chizkiya, sounds pretty much the same. So why did he say like the Shita of Chizkiya? So Amallah Chahu L'Darisu Dichsev. This pasuk is that pasuk is just talking about for future generations. Says Rashi, Azhara Linhoig Chukazu L'Zara Charav. It's just an azhara to that we should be accustomed ourselves in future generations to do this, but not that it's coming to teach us anything else. Yidach my tamul mahai. So meboyle Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina. The Rabbi Chanina kol kir she'ein boy kedei lekadesh arba kohanim imenu ein mikachin bo. There has to be a minimum amount, and if you don't have enough to be able to hold 4 kohanim, then you can't be mekadesh. Why 4? Shenem Barachas Minu Moshe and Aaron Uvanav. Moshe and Aaron and the 2 kids is 4. So I'm going to tell you that the minimum shear of that kir has got to be 4. Tanurabana. Ketzad mitzvahs kiddush. How exactly do they wash the hands and feet? So Menich Yado Hayimanis Al Gabi Rago Hayimanis. They put their right hand by their right foot. V'yadu the smoilus al gabi ragul the smoilus. They put the left hand by the left foot. Mekanish, and they would pour the water in this way. So this way it was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You put the 2 hands next to each other. And 2 feet next to each other. Umekadish, doing all 4 at the same time. How does this make sense? It's haplugta efshalasois kain shaper karmele. So the question is, how is this something which is allowed? Because you're going to fall down, right? So Omer Rav Yosef v'chaveru Messiah. So your friends will support you so he doesn't fall down while he's washing both his feet at the same time. So my binayu, Samarabaya, Amida Minatzadik Minayu. Whether or not you have to do it bi'amida, the question is if you have a kohen who is assisting you, is that also considered to be an amida? So that's the difference. I'm only Rav Sama Bered Ravashi. Loravina Velasiv Mesiv Lakadish. Once you sit down and do it. So Amakral Sharis Vashiris Umadhu. You have to do it while you're standing. But the question is maybe if you're being supported while you're standing is enough. Okay, question 8. Mashir Gadol Hakir L'chol Pachais. So as we said, Kedei L'Kadish Menu Arba Kohanim. What's the halacha? L'may Hilcha So Hukish Kiddush L'Shirus. That it has to be Ba'amida. You have to be standing. Fine. Let's keep on going. Fine. Tanurban. Kiddush Yalda Varagla B'yoyim. Let's say a person washed in the morning, his hands and feet already, and Tzarach Kaddish B'layla. Since he did the avodah, even though he was doing the avodah all day, and his hands were not askanya, they're not going to get dirty, because he was concentrating and guarding them, so you don't have to do it again at night. Divi Rabbi, if you did it at night, you have to do it again in the morning. Shahi Rabbi Omer, Lina, just the notion of the night passing through, Moelas B'Kiddush Yadayim, B'Reglayim. It helps regarding your hands and feet. In other words, you must wash your hands again in the morning. Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon Omer, Ein Lina Moelas B'Kiddush Yadayim, B'Reglayim, which basically means you do not need to wash your hand again while you're doing the avodah at night. Tiny Yidach, we learn another brisa. Let's say you have a person who's standing, is makriv karbana, he's doing things on the mizbeach all night. Tu'un kiddush yadayim b'raglayim, he still needs the next morning to do kiddush yadayim b'raglayim. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon Omer, kivan kiddush yadayim b'raglayim metchilos avayda. Once you already did this in the beginning of the avodah, feel bikan v'yada sar yomim in tzarach kaddish. Obviously, you're not doing the avodah 10 days straight, but it basically means that you as long as you're doing the avodah, it doesn't matter if it's day or night. You don't have to wash again. Rebbe, maybe only in that situation does Rebbe say that. That when it comes to doing the avodah during the day, you don't have to walk mimikadosh again at night, but at night you have to during the day. Why? The pasuk le me avodah avodah. Maybe that's because there's a hefsek between each avodah. Of a baha, the loy pasuk le emamoida le Rabbi. Moida le Rabbi Lezer Rab Shimon. Maybe where you just continued doing the avodah, there was no hefsek. Maybe that's different, and therefore you would not have to ever wash. Yashmin Bahaba, how come Rabbi Shimon of a Baham might Rabbi, but maybe over here he would agree to Rabbi because there's a hefsek me'avodah avodah sricha. So my time in the Rabbi, why does Rabbi in fact say that you have to wash if you did the avodah at night, you still have to wash again in the day? The chsiv says begishtem that you came close. My time. So begishtam, so you came close. Let's see if there's a Rashi on this. It says Rashi, begisha deshachris gishachrita. That's considered like a new coming. Shar yeshkan maracha chadasha. So there's a new pyre on the mizbeach. So since it's new, you have to wash again. So my time with Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, dechsib b'vayam. Whenever you come. So therefore, but if you never left, you don't need to wash again. Vidach nami haksib b'vayim, which is mashma only if you come back, but if you're always there, you shouldn't have to wash again. No iksiv begishtam v'oksib b'vayim. It would only said begishtam, which is mashma. Again, that's why we said according to Rebbe, since it says begishtam, it's like a new encountering. That's why you have to wash again. V'luksid b'voyam. So it was that way. So havamina al kol gish v'gisha. Every single time you come, kasam rachman b'voyam. That's not always every single time you come, because even according to Rebbe, he says that if you were doing the avoda during the day, you don't have to do you don't have to wash again at night. So what if you're just coming for no good old reason? So maybe in that situation that would be different. So where it says 1 second, it's only when you're serving, doing the avoda. So certainly if you're not, you're just walking around, that you shouldn't count. So El Begishtam Miboyle Rabachim Bar Yaakov. The Rabachim Bar Yaakov Hakomoi. The Rebbe goes Mekadosh Sheni. When it comes to second washing, Kashu Lovush Mekadosh. So it said that when the Kohen Gadol does the avoda, the question is, this is complicated machlokas in Masechtas Yoma. I always had difficulty with it. Rameinu Rabbanan, whether or not when you do the kiddush before every tefillah, the question is, what comes first? Do you first do the kiddush yada v'ragul of the washing the hands and the feet, and then you remove the garments? Reb Meir holds that you first do pashat kiddush yada v'ragul. First you wash your hands, and then pashat kiddush yada v'ragul. Umoidim, that first you take off the clothes and then you wash. Moidim hein b'kiddush shel acher tefillah. However, they all agree after, that's before the tefillah, the kiddush, because you have to do a kiddush before and after each tefillah. That's why there's 10 kiddushim and 5 tefillahs. So everyone holds that after the tefillah is done, everyone holds shaloi v'shabegadim shu machlif. First you put on the clothes, yachach mekadosh, and then you wash. Then mekadosh kishu oirum. We don't wash while you're naked in that time. Okay. Fine. So let's just finish this Rashi. Dechsiv begishtam yirchatzu mishin mechusar el kiddush ein mechusar acher kiddush el gisha. Okay. So basically, again, in that case, you're supposed to first put on the clothes and then you do the washing, because you're not mekadosh orum afterwards. So again, he needs it for the following: that moedim kiddush sheni, when it comes to the washing your hands and feet after the tefillah, kishu lovish mekadosh. That you have to first put on the clothes and then you wash. My time demakra obigishta mishena mechusar el gisha bovad yatzeh shemechusar lavisha v'gisha. So in that case, if you would wash your hands first and then you would put on clothes, so then it goes against the pasuk which says right after the kiddush you go to the mizbeach, you go to do the avoda, but nothing in between. So it must be that you have to put on the clothes before. Okay, lahakter isha lamali. Why in the pasuk does it say b'voam el oyamoyed? When you go to oyamoyed, yirchatz hamayim, you wash your hands. V'yamusu obigishtam el mizbech l'sharis lahakter isha l'Hashem. So what does that mean? You're makter a fire offering to Hashem. As we continue to Chafam and Aleph, you would think the only time you need to do kiddush, washing your hands in the morning, is an avoda that is ma'akev, like for example dam or kamitza. However, something like, for example, Hakdara Simur, which is said many times as Masechta, the bringing of the sacrificial parts is not ma'akev, so maybe you would not need kiddush, so therefore the kiddush is even there you do. Okay, we're going to stop there. And there are no questions on TB. There's a TA29, which I don't have the test in front of me, but again, we learned out the difference as to why there's a difference between the Kohen Gadol's washing, which is not ma'akev, as opposed to the very first time when you wash it is ma'akev, because we learned out from this pasuk, v'oisalchem chayk oilam l'zara charav, that anyone who's ma'akev bizarro ma'akev boy, which is referring to a regular Kohen, but it's something which is not ma'akev bizarro, but only applies to a Kohen Gadol. Namely, all the washings on Yom Kippur, it is not ma'akev. Ad kan.